Hey, happy Friday. Welcome to the next episode of Hollywood Breaks. I'm Tim Thompson. We have Keith Rauch here with us, our industry insider. And this is the show where we share our insights that we've captured throughout the week in our ever-changing industry, just to give you insights on what you could do as a content creator and overall just film geek, I'll say. Keith, it's good to have you with me again today. Where are you
Nice to be
now?
with you, as always.
Back in Philly, right?
I'm still in Philly, and it looks like I'm going to be in Philly for the duration. I don't think we'll be making it back up to Maine, so our listeners are going to have to deal with my Philly background for a while until I can find another background that suits a podcast. It's going to be the French doors with the brick.
Well, as I promised, I'm down in LA this week. And I was hoping to get some kind of buzz of what's happening in the film world, kind of get a sense of it. I went out to dinner with some friends I haven't seen for a while. Obviously, wore masks, kept the distance, did all what the rules were. Although Orange County, a little bit easier.
A little bit Lucian, a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't want to say liberal. That's not the right word, but a little bit more freedom in Orange County versus LA County.
I just think that the virus wants to stay in LA County and the virus doesn't want to come to Orange County. That orange curtain protects the southern barrier.
Yep. That's what it is. That's totally what it is.
Well, good to see you. I'm actually going to try to get out this weekend and go to the theater because the theaters are open here. And of course, some of our favorite movies that come out in the last couple of weeks. And I want to get to Tenet in a second. But before we go too far, actually, the Dune trailer, total piece of art that came out.
Yes,
absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's your thoughts on it? You're the.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'll give a little shout out to trailer vendor Wildcard. Nick Temple and his editorial team crushed it as they normally do. It's just a beautiful piece of art from a trailer perspective. Even personally, having worked in trailers for so long and done so many trailers, the idea of having a music cue that's a song in the background is somewhat tired to me, and yet somehow they found a way to make that feel original. I think the song was I think it was a Pink Floyd song.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but don't quote me on that. But
you quoted yourself.
It was beautifully worked in. Yeah, I did. It's beautifully worked in. I think it was just a great theatrical piece. It really was. If I was going to critique it at all, I'd say it was a little long, because I started to get a little like, okay, all right, let's kind of get to it. I do think the rollout strategy was brilliant. Warner Brothers, Blair Rich and her team always do such a stellar job in terms of building up to a rollout of a release. And they always try to find innovative ways to do it. I think they had the cast do something prior to it, talking about working on the movie. They did a Stephen Colbert thing right before it. So it's so much beyond just the typical, what they now call the tweezer, where they basically put out a piece online that says in 5 days or tomorrow, the so-and-so trailer. It was so much more robust than that. I think that was really smart on their part, just simply because everyone's sort of staring at their screens right now because there's not much happening in the world.
Yeah, and I appreciated the art of the trailer kind of experience too. I think it might have been Blade Runner this last time I kind of saw a trailer play itself out in that way. Or obviously the Star Wars trailers, they do a great job of hiding the elements. And as a trailer fan, I thought it was pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, it was a really nice piece.
It was a little reminiscent of like the video game trailers I've been seeing too. I think that there were the shots that were composed and the way they walked through it, obviously trying to appeal to a younger audience with the actors and such. So, but as a remake, I'm kind of curious who's actually the audience for the film. I remember the original films came out, and I don't. I'll say I don't even know if it made that big of a splash as the original.
It was kind of always a cult hit, I think. I've never seen the original. I think the question I kept asking myself as I was watching the piece, despite its artistic greatness, was who is this for? Listen, I don't have access to sort of the Warner Brothers numbers, and sometimes it's gut instinct. Like you get a great director like Denis Villeneuve. All apologies to Dennis if I just butchered his name. And you get a iconic property like that. And when you have a creative director who wants to tackle something like that, I mean, I don't know if I would have said no to that. But at the same time, the flip side of that question is, or that statement is, who's this movie for?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously looks expensive. It's a big cinematic.
I mean, they have Legendary Pictures as a co-financier, which usually means that there's a hefty price tag. There's a laundry list of cast, given sort of the end cards that you see there with like, anytime there's more than like 2 cards of cast, or at least 2 cards of cast with like a laundry list going down, your above the line costs are going to be higher than normal.
It's kind of a who's who in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there were people that I was looking back through, because I'm a dork like this, that sort of screen grabs of the trailer, and they had like a list of some of the cast that I missed watching the trailer the first time. I was like, wow, I didn't know he was in this movie. Oh my gosh, she's in the movie. Well, I mean, it's like, it's a laundry list of people.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge because I don't know, are women going to show up? Because Timothée Chalamet is the head. Does he have a huge female following? I don't know. And it's the other big question is it's obviously a very complicated story. How do you I mean, this is the challenge of every campaign, but this one I feel is going to be particularly challenging. How do you encapsulate that into a shorter form content?
Yeah, because sometimes these remakes, though, the director kind of finds like a new angle or a new approach to storytelling.
Yeah.
That by watching the movie or rewatching the movie, you get a revelation that you might not have seen the first time. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of directors actually go deep into some of the thematic experiences of film, and maybe the production team and director team kind of figured that out in this storyline to make it relevant for today. And it might surprise us again as a new cult classic, but
I don't want to infer that I'm not rooting for it. Obviously, I am, because to your point, who knows how great it will be. But my bigger concern again is like, who's this movie for? If it's for the younger audience, how are you going to convince them to stop recording things on TikTok and go watch this movie? If it's for an older audience, well, look at what happened with Tenet. Is this still going to be the same issue? There's a lot of questions, obviously. Again, I applaud the rollout. They've got I think they've got some time. With the ever-changing nature of the theatrical business right now, we could be at 100% reopen by the time this comes out, and people could be starving to go see a big sci-fi spectacle in the theater.
Yeah, I think like they've chosen a date that everyone's speculating after the election things will change. But you're right, as a content creator, just to think about who the audience is, what the distribution is for your content, how well it's going to be viewed, kind of how that promotes other people or what your promise is as a content maker, especially with a cast like that. There's a lot of people put their name on the line, assuming it was going to be something big when they started the production. And I had no understanding that a pandemic like this was going to change some of the dynamics of filmmaking. It also might be a big Oscar play. You can see that someone has to receive the Oscar for best visual effects. Someone has to receive the Oscar for storyline. And who knows how this could kind of like get in deep to some of those other categories and receive a soundtrack or score, play, visual effects.
I could easily see cinematography, directing. I mean, and some of the actors they have in there are no slouches, so I'm sure there could be potential actor nominations as well. Yeah. So who knows?
So they could be trying to get it into a deadline, regardless of audience or theatrical, in order to get all those Oscar wins and stack up 6 or 7 or 8 of those just for that cinematic experience. That's a smart play for them too. All right. So obviously with distribution, the question mark and what you've been saying for weeks, the canary in the coal mine, it happened. Tenet came out, it rolled out, it went into theaters. Tell me, first of all, what's your gut telling you? Did it kind of get to the core of our storytelling desires?
I think what my gut tells me is that it was not what they wanted it to be. I think it was 20.2, I think was in 2,800 theaters or such. And I think it was like almost a 7,200 per screen average. That's not spectacular. I don't think it really has penetrated the culture either. That's another thing. I kind of try to keep an eye on how things are cresting on social media and see who's responding to what, and no one was really talking about it. And I think that's a big tell in terms of it just not being something that everyone's like, oh, we got to go see this movie. We got to go see this movie. And it was unfortunate. And one of the articles I read, they had a shot of the theater and it was like 2 people in it, maybe 4. And that's a horrible shot. That's just like the last thing you want to see. Oh. And I honestly think
you would think that the studio could have staged a theater to get and paid actors to sit into seats to do
something. I mean, they can't control all the press, but it's like, and not only if you could like tell them to run a photo with them, but it was just such a, and maybe that was the point of the article. They're just saying no one's going to the movies. But I do think this is showcased that, I might speculate. I hope I'm wrong, but I think 2020 might be somewhat of a wash for theatrical. I could be wrong. The numbers could start to shift. More theaters, 60 to 70% of circuits were open when it released. So more is going to open. As you said, OC is opening this weekend. So that's, AMC is opening some of their bigger circuits. That's a good sign. However, I think there was an article in Deadline this past week where it basically the headline was basically saying that Warner Brothers is now contemplating moving. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry. My headset just died. So.
Oh, no worries. We can hear you. Okay. Yeah, the Deadline article to me too, I know that it was talking about Wonder Woman, but it's interesting when the spin that Deadline was kind of putting on it to help save face maybe a little bit for Chris Nolan or Warner Brothers, and the idea of like explaining the issues that they're up against. Yeah. Again, I think they're trying to reset that matrix that
Deadline is very studio friendly. It's gone far from the days of Nikki Fink when it wasn't so studio friendly. So it's an arm of Variety. So they kind of share, and they're very friendly with. You got to be friendly with the studios because those publications rely on the for your consideration ads. So you can't really tick off your biggest contributor, basically.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
it makes sense from a business perspective. But I think, their phrasing of this film had its challenges is more or less a tell saying, yeah, this didn't work. And he's right. They're right. There were challenges to it. I do think because Christopher Nolan is such a proponent of the theatrical experience, I think Warner Brothers kind of had to be the first sacrificial lamb. And I think Christopher Nolan was like, my movie needs to be seen in the theaters. And
yeah, I'm going to guess that it was a PR release is what inspires those kind of notes when Deadline's putting articles out that way.
Oh yeah, it's totally PR driven, and I think it is maybe an effort to save Christopher Nolan a bit of flack for going out so soon. When still a lot of theaters were still closed. LA and New York, and as you and I talked about last week, LA and New York are big Christopher Nolan fans. So that's where a lot of his fans are, I should say. So, shutting those people off from seeing the movie, I don't know. It dovetails to maybe the question of, is there now a opportunity for Warner Media, the larger company, to go to premium video on demand?
Yeah, right.
Potentially shift it over to
HBO Max. Which people will finally watch HBO Max because Tenet went over there and they couldn't finally establish, clean up some of the mess that was created earlier.
Yeah.
But I think that the industry has a pretty good memory of what Chris Nolan has done for them. He's been such a solid filmmaker. I honestly think that some of the presentation he was putting out before the film and trying to be an industry leader and being an advocate for theatrical cinematic release and why directors really make movies and why producers make movies is to get it out there and be seen in films, and to be a voice piece for that for a few weeks and take that side. I think that's very helpful. I think the industry would be very soft on them. And by the way, he did save like the DC empire for Warner Brothers. I mean, he recreated this new surge, and clearly Wonder Woman is part of that conversation, right? The whole DC move and the fact that Wonder Woman was even made to begin with, and the spectacular experience that was. With their new push for Wonder Woman, you kind of wonder if how they're playing off each other, piggybacking the two together. But as you're saying, I guess they're even talking about pushing Wonder Woman even further.
Yeah, they're talking about pushing it into November. It's supposed to come out, I believe, October 2nd. And obviously, the tenant numbers make them a little nervous. New York is dragging its feet as far as they just announced that restaurants can open, I think, on Monday at 25% capacity. So, I mean, God knows what that's going to mean for theaters. LA, who knows? LA County was saying no Halloween, and it's only September. So they ultimately backtracked on that, but still, the fact that's where a lot of the county health departments are right now in terms of their head. They're like, we're not doing anything until we know for sure that this virus is squashed. So for the theatrical experience, that doesn't bode well. And I think that maybe also what Warner Bros. Is looking at now is like, well, we have this next big movie that's a big part of our DC universe. And it was one of, despite all the hiccups of the Justice League and this forthcoming Snyder Cut and all that stuff, Wonder Woman was the one that was very well received. Mm-hmm. And it was a very well done movie. And I think that this is sort of the crown jewel for them after Batman in the DC universe. And I think they want to be very cautious to make sure that it gets the widest launch possible. Its potential, I think they're getting the conversation out there, so it's not a complete shock when they do move it. They usually try to lay groundwork for this, so they can start having the conversation with the filmmakers, with the talent, and sort of start slow rolling the idea of potentially bumping it.
Yeah,
that may also be the purpose of the Deadline article as well, to sort of start getting people on board. Like, okay, yeah, we might have to look at potentially moving this, but at the same time, it's sort of a tell that Tenet is not what they wanted it. It's not doing what they hoped it would.
Well, I would think that with an original release date of October, they kind of knew that they were either punting from the summer to try to find this new pocket, or now pushing back towards those Christmas movie deadlines that we're all under kind of looking.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think that Wonder Woman has a certain appeal to audience. Obviously, a strong female lead, incredible in this storyline. At least the Wonder Woman was, and really kind of found that a good angle that was separate from the Marvel universe that could build up different characters, different reasons. Yeah. So I appreciate that, and I think that could appeal to a broader audience of males and females demographic as well.
Yeah.
Tenet still feels a little bit more sci-fi, male categorized, especially in their marketing pieces. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to see what Wonder Woman does to kind of broaden the audience and make it into something bigger, especially towards the holiday season.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for marketing because there's nothing worse. I worked on a movie when I was at Fox, and the release dates just kept bouncing around, and it was so painful because you work on it, you start putting the campaign together, and then you get the call from a distribution meeting that the release has been pushed 3 months, and you're like, ugh. So then you have to sideline it and put it aside, and oh yeah, by the way, I've already spent money on it, but I can't spend any more, and then you got to come back to it, and then the release gets pumped, and it's just tough because a lot of what you do when you're cutting materials and putting together a strategy is based a lot on what the market is doing and what your competitors are doing. Mm-hmm. And because you want to try to stick out. And if there's like a culturally relevant event that's happening, you want to try to factor that in if it's possible. But all those tools in the typical marketer's toolbox have been removed for a lot of these studios because they have no idea when the movie's coming out.
Yeah. A lot of the tie-ins that they do with other promotions and stuff.
I mean,
you've been working on them for years to hit those deadlines.
I worked on like 5 X-Men campaigns, and I mean, the promotion guys I used to work with, God love them, but they would call me like 6 months before release asking for art, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Art? Yeah. Like approved character poses, and I'm like, so. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. The promotion deals are long lead times. And with a movie like Wonder Woman, which has that sort of kid-friendly attachment, I'm sure that's driving their promotions person up a wall, because how can make a deal, he or she make a deal with a big brand? Well, one, making a deal with a big brand rock box retailer when a lot of them,
not to mention the action figure,
or people aren't going. I mean, again,
the consumable market too, like the action figure marketplace, all those items that are basically prepped, backpacks that are made, getting ready for Christmas time, so that and that's big dollars for studios. Yes. It's not like that's
how they make a lot of their money.
Yeah, they'll be willing to give up some audience share in order to make sure that they hit those deadlines, so they can hit that market.
Yeah, exactly.
I am curious on like what you think of the still PVOD model, because Mulan did their thing, possibly Tenet, you're talking about that, and HBO Max, and Wonder Woman. I'd be curious what they've learned so far, what Warner's learned so far, to kind of think through what as a possible PVOD move for them too. And I wonder if they would complement it closer, because I know at Tenet they basically asked the distributors to hold on to it, the circuits to hold on to it longer. I don't know what the deals are being made for Wonder Woman.
I mean, and that's the other thing. It's like the deals with the circuits, like, how long are we going to keep this in theaters? Do we want to go quicker to a PVOD? Because, with HBO Max, it's not as streamlined as Disney Plus, where you have the brands broken out. But they do have a DC Comics section. So one wonders if, again, that might, they might figure out a way to kind of push Wonder Woman out into that space. But it's sooner rather than later. It's tough right now, because it's like you don't know how many circuits are going to be open. And I think if the market still looks the same, then I would say that Warner Brothers it'd probably behoove them to look at a PVOD model for Wonder Woman. But given the fact that, again, OC just is opening this weekend, hopefully in the next week or two, since restaurants are opening, New York will start opening theaters. So it's tough to really lock down any sort of deals right now in terms of where you're going to go. But I got to think that they got to be looking at that, given the fact that they're potentially going to lose some money on Tenet. And, with no release dates coming up anytime soon, there's going to be some pressure to try to up the ante in terms of what kind of money we can make with a release just theatrically versus a combo release on theatrical and PVOD a la Mulan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to find a solid release date of something good, I guess, until Dune comes out or something like that. But it doesn't, for the next few weeks, the theaters are not going to be getting, a lot of interest or a lot of concern that way.
I mean, I honestly think, going back to my comment about this Tenet being the canary in the coal mine, I think we are looking at 2020 potentially being a wash.
Yeah.
As far as theatrical goes. And, we're heading into Oscar season, and whether or not those movies are still going to go out. I mean, I know the Academy has extended the Oscar preview time and eligibility time, but at the same time,
there's only so it's going to be, the campaigns are going to be FYC asterisks. So that it's like, in consideration of the pandemic, we were the best movie. Trolls,
we may bump to next year, so don't forget us. Yeah, exactly.
Or we didn't release into theaters; we were only direct to television. But please asterisk us that we were pretending, or we would have been in the theaters. And there's going to be some major moving around in the FYC world to see what's going on. What's interesting to me too, and you pointed this out to me earlier, is that with the stay-at-home audience, try to appeal to them what's going on. This whole DC Wondercon thing, you can recognize that they're kind of making a new audience or even new material for their movies in a different way, something you can consume at home and stuff that you can see at the theaters. But it feels like, the Wondercon kind of is like upfronts, like what you used to do in television market, where you basically would gather all the potential buyers, have them watch or have exposure to the content, so that the buyers and sellers can kind of put their pieces together and then make promotion in the future. The WonderCon is upfront, where it's now open to the audience. Why don't you explain what WonderCon is, and then what the angle that you think they're doing here with this online visibility coming up tomorrow?
I think what so DC Wondercon, I believe it's called DC Wondercon. Now I'm starting to doubt myself. But anyway, DC had this huge Comic-Con type event. It was a couple weeks ago. I think you had to pay to be a part of it. It was when all these trailers came out for Batman, for Wonder Woman 1984. They released a lot of stuff for their TV shows as well. And from what I saw, it was beautifully produced, well thought out. And they made announcements about upcoming movies, and they had cast and talent there. And, they had a lot of buzzworthy material coming out of it. So it got a lot of good press. Everyone was talking about that Batman teaser for ages. Yeah. And then, of course, 4 days later, they shut down production because of Robert Pattinson catching COVID. But anyway,
I love that trailer too, by the way. I thought that was pretty exciting to see.
Somebody on Twitter commented, like, I don't care how many iterations of Batman they make. I'm always there every time they release one, and I'm the same way. I don't care how many times they do it. I'm looking forward to seeing Matt Reeves' interpretation of Batman. So I'm looking forward to that.
And especially coming off of Joker being such a successful thing, to have the worlds kind of meeting up would be great.
Yeah. So, so it seemed like it went really well. And they were really smart about tying together their whole universe. They're building a universe. And I think DC has always gotten sort of the short end of the stick in terms of, well, look at Marvel. Look how wonderful Marvel is. And they tell all these stories and everything's tied together. And DC's like, oh, they're just making one-offs and not really trying to tie together a story. And I think this is their version of trying to tie everything together, like putting it all together and seeing how the universe, everyone's talking together. I give Walter Hamada, who runs DC Films, a lot of credit for sort of coming in there and sort of righting the ship a little bit after the Justice League of it all. So I think his sort of influence on that sort of has spread to the whole universe itself. And what I really think is smart is I saw a promotion, I think it was a couple days ago. They're actually running it for 24 hours online. You can watch the whole thing. So it's another way of giving access to all those fans who weren't able to watch it. Everyone's kind of sitting at home. This is like the opportunity to showcase your universe, all the things that you have upcoming, all the TV shows, the new shows with new characters, and how it all is going to tie together. I mean, I just think it is an ultimate case study in sort of looking at the current landscape and taking full advantage of the tools that are currently available to you. And I think as marketers of content, that is one of the toughest challenges. And I think DC and Warner Brothers, if they were involved, I'm sure they were because some of the films were a part of it, and CW, just the amount of what felt like cohesion, and it just seemed to flow so well. And the fact that they're releasing it now means that it went over quite well. And I think it's a great sort of way of looking at how in this sort of new market of we can't all get together in a giant conference center, this may be the new world order and a way to do it and expose more people to it.
Yeah, and willing to. I have I have people that are in Shanghai right now putting together a video game event for League of Legends. And the overall experience that they're looking for too is this online experience. I mean, the people that are in the crowd usually in those video game finals there aren't as many as compared to the billions of people watching it online anyway. It feels like they Warner Brothers in this move is trying to think through like, wait, there are billions of people that watch online these live events. Maybe we should start tapping into that. And almost giving like the insider feel to, hey, I can see what's going on often at these conferences or events that usually just press is allowed to go to. Yeah, so to be able to be part of that presentation, I think that you can get earlier buy-in to these ideas. You probably even can see earlier responses to it and then adjust your marketing sooner than later.
It also broadens your audience. It helps you, because I'm sure if they're DC smart, and I don't doubt they are, I mean, they'll probably require an email address to sign up. So boom, you got somebody's email address. You got a fan. You can start building an email database. You can interact with them. The possibilities of sort of gathering together your audience and getting data on your audience, where they are, how long they watch for, all those kinds of things are very important. And they did a wonderful job of also releasing buzzworthy material, but also having some buzzworthy people show up. Like they had Linda Carter show up photo bomb, Zoom bomb, I guess, the Wonder Woman 1984 panel, and nobody knew it was coming.
Yeah,
so it was
that's
sort of
really
like
cool.
a really nice moment, and that got the press talking about it, and that gets people intrigued, and they were really sort of smart on how they leveled it out. Like, you didn't get every single trailer on one day. You got Batman one day, you got Wonder Woman another day, then you had this sort of the buzz about Linda Carter, and then you had sort of the TV show. So it was just like a nonstop run of information. And I think they also benefited from the fact that there was some curiosity in the entertainment press about what this was and who was going to do it, because it was the first real like big convention post. I mean, Comic-Con did something. It was like Comic-Con at home, but I don't think anybody was really curious about that because it was Comic-Con. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
Comic-Con. But this was sort of something new, so there was a lot of curiosity, and I think they took advantage of that. And I think they sort of, it seems like, judging from some of the reaction I've seen and read, that they played their chips right with this one.
Yeah, very good. We'll have to grab my friend Gareb Shamus from Ace Comic-Con and see if we can get some of his insights into it soon.
Yep.
Just a reminder, next week when we do this, we're actually going to be doing it live inside of a RevThink confab group. So we might have some live questions as we do this. If you're one of our viewers, please feel free to email or give us any questions or comments here on our feed. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keith and I both love the feedback that you send us and the information that you're presenting to us that we can process with you. A lot of good suggestions from some of our viewers to hit some of these topics. So happy to talk about those. As you can tell, we really barely touched on Mulan, so we're going to have to pick that up next week too, to kind of talk about what Disney is doing. But I'll say it really has been kind of a journey to watch Warner Media go from all the kind of bad press we were watching, the layoffs they're doing just a few weeks ago, to kind of hitting a new stride. I think they did it good timing to have that news out of the way and then get Tenet and all their Wonder Woman stuff in order so that they can finish out this year strong. I'm excited to see what they're doing. It's so interesting to be watching the industry from the insider's point of view, to see what the big players are doing, the decision makers at the studios are doing, and some of the strategy necessary to get viewing audience, because we like to talk about the marketing side, but also just keep the studio going and what the real issues are of making money, getting distribution, keeping the IP solid, keeping their actors and talent solid. There's a lot of moving pieces. So, so interesting to watch this whole thing change. Well, that's another good wrap for us. Thanks again, Keith, for all the insights that you're giving us. I really love this format. Kind of keep it going. Yeah. And let's get more bodies involved.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we'll see you next week on Wednesday when we do this live.